oh, we're all here as opposed to like,
Yeah, absolutely.
no, oh, good, we're all here. Okay,
Except
so,
for, yeah.
no, we're good. I see,
Okay, great. Springs here too?
yeah, I see happy smiling faces. That one, nice, thanks, Bob. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Segundo.
and all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We are off and running. We will start off with public comment. And as always, we just read these now. Actually, this will be the last time that they're read, I think. Then as we all know, we don't comment on them. We absorb, we hear you, we listen, and we don't say a word. All right. Oh wait, before we do that, Greg Allison is going to be our lead superintendent. He's our substitute superintendent for the night, and we're all going to treat him very nicely and not like a sub. And we're going to be honest with him with our answers. And we are very happy that you're here, Greg. And it's just a great thing to see. It's sort of your great example of continuing education for all of us, that we are all continuously learning. So I'm really glad you're here. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and I appreciate having Slade's guidance as well. So we have 3 public comments that were submitted before 4:00 p.m. Today. And I'll go ahead and read the first one. And this one is by Halby Doherty Wood from January 21st. Hi there. I wanted to email the school board to express my opinion about opening schools. I have been told that there is a vocal group of individuals who are concerned about sending their kids back to school, so I'm offering a different perspective. My family moved to Vashon in August. When I heard that the Vashon School District was thinking about bringing kids back to in-person learning in hybrid fashion, I was really pleased to hear this. My husband and I have been running a business, caring for our kids and supervising their education for almost a year, and we are not sure how much longer we can do this. With a kiddo in kindergarten and 3rd grade, we are seeing sadness, anxiety, and frustration increase in both of our kiddos. My son, who's a kindergartner, says I hate school almost every morning, and my daughter is very bored. They both hit a wall with online learning. I'm in full support of bringing kids back to school safely and with a solid health plan in place. After Governor Inslee's speech recommending kids go back to school sooner than later and sharing that the transmission between smaller kids is not high, I'm convinced that we've hit a transition point where the solution of having kids at home online is hurting more than it's helping. I hope you'll consider this when at your 2/1 or February 1st meeting to make a choice on behalf of our community. Thanks very much, Halby Doherty Wood. And the quote, forever is composed of nows by Emily Dickinson. The second letter is submitted by Kimberly Norris and Gator Lamphere. And this is from January 28th. Hi, please include these questions for the board tonight. What do the teachers want? What does their union say? Is the public administration going to override the teachers if the teachers don't feel safe? If so, will the school district fire the teachers who don't want to come back? Will they hire scabs to teach our children? When are teachers getting vaccinated? What phase are they if age and generational households are not a factor? How does the new strain of virus affect reopening plans and safety protocols? With double masking recommended for the mutated virus, will everyone, students included, have to wear double masks? Is the school board superintendent et al. Looking at data for the newly designed regions or just for Vashon specifically? What will you do if the virus spreads after the reopen and you have to shut it down again? Why can't we just wait until fall 2021 and after everyone is vaccinated? Sincerely, Kimberly Norris and Gator Lamphere. And the third public comment was submitted, I believe, sometime today on the 28th. And this is by Kit Groover. To the members of the VISD board, first, I must extend my deep gratitude and respect for all that you have done to lead us all through this unprecedented time. Your transparency, commitment, resourcefulness, and accountability are exceptional, and it would be difficult to find another district that has weathered these challenges with such compassion and professionalism. Thank you. Second, I want to applaud your efforts toward the consideration of reopening the schools for in-person learning. I understand that you are constantly weighing the risks involved for students, staff and students, and I do not envy the task before you. I have contemplated this puzzle from many perspectives. As a parent, I'm grappling with a teenager who is suffering from the social and emotional deprivation that remote schooling has wrought. While my son's experience is not as extreme, we have all read the news of the devastating toll this isolation is taking on the mental health of many adolescents. As a career educator, I know how paramount authentic connection is to the transformational nature of learning. While I understand the transactional reality of remote instruction is unavoidable, the loss of a more vibrant relationship to academia has profound consequences, as all too often kids define themselves by their failure to succeed at school. And it is a rare student who is thriving during this time. In my current role as HR manager at Sawbones, I have witnessed the financial and relational strain that many of my employees have faced as they have had to choose between their jobs or parenting, many of them trying to piece together a schedule that allows them to do both. Most of these employees do not have the privilege of working remotely, an unemployed parent who can support learning at home, or wages that allow for a childcare or tutoring budget. Still, we are doing what we can to live with the current COVID-19 reality and applauding the teachers for their efforts to make the most of a terrible situation. As we contemplate next steps, the safety of our beloved teaching community is first and foremost. Of course, we do not want to place these professionals at risk. What is the answer? Prioritizing vaccinations for all educators, access to rapid testing, and community support of protocols. However, decisions about how we implement a safe reopening plan should not be made in a blanket policy at the gate, but in pathways forged by willing individuals. If there is one thing that we have learned at Sawbones during this time, it is that options, compromise, and dynamic solutions are essential, and refining, sometimes on a daily basis, is the way forward. Is there a lane that allows for those who choose to work remotely to work alongside those teachers and families who are open to in-person learning? Many schools are now successfully serving their youngest students through flexible structures, a thoughtful phased approach, and vigilant protocols. They are, as we all know, building the plane while flying it and taking calculated risks. From my perspective, this is the only way through, as we do not want to face a division that pits the health of our teachers against the health of our students and families. The emotional, social, intellectual, and economic impact and importance of school has never been more visible or visceral than during this unintended but illuminated experience. Thank you for trying always to find a collaborative and compassionate solutions that weigh the risks and costs of bringing our school community back intentionally, safely, and one day at a time. Kit Groover, parent of a 10th grader. Okay, am I on for the next one too?
You're on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Once again, I'm grateful to be here, and I want to continue the tradition that Dr. McSheehy has begun by making a land acknowledgement to begin this evening. We acknowledge tonight that we are on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup people. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land and beyond. In conjunction with that acknowledgement, I just also wanted to share, I've been learning a little bit recently about another event that happened in the past week on January 22nd, and that's Treaty Day. And a colleague of mine who is an administrator in the Ferndale district and a member of the Lummi Nation has shared a bit of their experience in the Ferndale schools. And I just thought I'd share a little bit of information from the Ferndale Public Schools site on Treaty Day. On January 22nd, 1855, the United States entered into a solemn agreement with the Lummi Nation and other nations of the Salish Sea. On that day, representatives from these two independent sovereign nations came together in Mukilteo and made promises to one another about how their respective peoples would share the land and resources of this region, land that had been the traditional homelands of the Lummi and other people for more than 150 generations. The agreement they signed is called the Point Elliott Treaty. Treaty Day is an important part of all of our history. It is not just a Lummi Nation event. Every one of us who lives in this region has benefited from the fact that the Lummi ancestors and our pioneer ancestors chose to come together in peace to determine a way that we could all share this beautiful land. As Washingtonians, we are all treaty people. If it weren't for the treaties between the United States and the 29 sovereign nations within the Washington territories, we would not have become the state we are today. So in honor of January 22nd, Treaty Day. The next piece I wanted to share a little bit about is the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday commemoration on the 18th and activities in schools around Black History Month. There's been a variety of commemorative activities and lessons happening in all three schools the past weeks and will continue on into February. It's been a little interesting to observe in a typical year, not in distance learning. There would typically be an assembly of some sort and lots of in-class activities to commemorate these holidays and months. But in some cases, we've become more creative and probably more authentic in distance learning. At Chautauqua, their teachers have integrated lots of lessons and discussions into classrooms to honor the Dr. King holiday. They've been using resources from Teaching Tolerance and the King Center. And additionally, the equity team at Chautauqua continues to support the work with resources and training in staff meetings and other professional development. At McMurray, we've implemented a lesson called Martin Luther King Jr. and the Power of Words through homeroom classes. And we're planning to highlight a mosaic of Black American artists in homeroom through the month of February. We're also engaging interested students, which is really cool, to become involved in an advisory capacity on those activities to give greater student voice on what we're doing. At Vashon High School, the Racial Equity Pact there is planning a February 1st, which is next Monday, all-school assembly during SMART period to honor Martin Luther King Jr. and Black History Month. That assembly will be engaging for students, featuring slides, breakout rooms, and they've hit just a great keynote from a speaker named Erin Jones, and she's a fantastic speaker. I've heard her several times, and so that should be a great event for the high school. So in particular, I know the board is going to be taking up a discussion tonight around Black Lives Matter resolution, and so it's great to see the schools really getting a jump start on that call to action in that work. So thank you. And as Zabet alluded to, starting February 11th, board meetings will be held in person at VHS, and planning for health and safety are underway with nursing services, building administration, and technology. So more to come on that return to in-person board meetings. A couple of updates, and Slade, I think, is going to help me out a little bit with this piece. There's, as you know, by the minute, sometimes there are updates regarding the return to in-person learning. You may have heard that the governor has announced that the Puget Sound region will be entering into phase 2, potentially on Monday. And this could segue a potential return to sporting activities. And so more to come on that potentially in February. Staff and parent Q&A sessions were held last week, and we got a lot of feedback and a lot of great questions from all staff and parents involved in that those two activities. And then also, as you know, we had a great board work session on Thursday the 21st. I appreciate all of your thoughtful questions on that event. We have a team from Chautauqua that is visiting Sultan School District today, and that's going to be a really fantastic learning experience about a school district that is opening up in hybrid, and they've been super responsive to Rebecca and her team as they consider a reopening plan for Vashon. Probably a little bit of update on vaccines. Vashon's been seeing an increase in the past week for vaccines with the MRC and Tyler at the pharmacy. And so we hope that'll be a continuing trend, and we continue to see improvement on that front. And then also this week, there was a recent CDC report urging a return to classroom instruction as soon as possible. And the quote from the CDC said, the preponderance of evidence, of available evidence indicates that it can be carried out safely as long as mask wearing and social distancing are maintained. Research at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention wrote in the Journal of American Medical Association. Slade, did you want to add any more to that piece?
No, but I'll answer. Bob brought up earlier before the meeting, we did receive an email from Chris Rakedahl, and I say we meaning area superintendents, actually all state superintendents, at 4:53. I'll just read it quickly for the board. So, dear superintendents, for your information, tomorrow morning I will hold a media availability with the president of Kaiser Permanente, Washington, Susan Mullaney, to announce a partnership to vaccinate K-12 school employees. The plan aims to support a safe return to schools across Washington. And then he adds a link. The media availability will be held at 11 a.m. You may watch live or later via this TVW website. And so I know that this announcement, or there was an indication about this announcement at Wednesday's superintendent's meeting for our region. We were on the line with OSPI and their representatives, and it looks like, again, we don't understand the technicalities because I know that our state has a finite number of vaccinations coming in, per week. And so how they're allocated and how they're distributed, it's been an interesting watch over the last 4 days. One of my colleagues in the superintendent's meeting, I think aptly put it that it's kind of like Hunger Games for superintendents. And that if you're familiar with what the Hunger Games are, every man or woman or person for themselves, that there is a flavor of that, in our region and probably across the state. I will recognize Sarah Day and the MRC and all those involved in putting forward, their as much as they're able to go, efforts to vaccinate our staff. I'm obviously a proponent of that. I understand the governor and how they've decided around their phases. I don't think there's a 100% solution for this particular, for these particular questions. But it is good to see leadership coming from Chris Rakedahl and responsiveness to area superintendents. And I'm sure from our legislators to try to facilitate some type of program. But I will say this, in our quick meeting with OSPI, this was not a solution that we're going to see in the next 2 weeks. This is still what I understand a solution that could take place over the next 4 to 6 weeks. And that is, according to, again, one of my colleagues said, if everything goes as planned, but I'll be quite frank with everybody, nothing has gone as planned during COVID. There are some exceptions. I don't want to dismiss, our staff's work and everything. There's been a lot of planning that we followed through on, but just to give you a sense of what's happening, in the vaccination world, I'm actually more optimistic about our own MRC and Sarah Day's efforts. However, I know that that's it's a hope that we all hold, and I only know that information again is changing day by day, and I know on February 1st we may learn even more when we meet with our health service partners from King County and from the MRC. But this is going to be kind of a waiting game and see as you go. So hopefully, I don't know if that answers your questions, Bob, because I didn't have a lot of answers, but that's what came from Chris Rakedahl today. Anybody else have questions about vaccinations? Right. There wasn't a whole lot to cover, but I think I covered it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just finish this piece just with some gratitude and highlight what you spoke about, Zabad. I just want to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Mashihi and the entire school board for their support in the learning experience that I've been going through with my program and offering me this opportunity to expand my knowledge in this particular experience and others. I'm in, for those of you who don't know, I'm in the Superintendent Certification Program at Western Washington University. And this is led by, many of you know, Dr. Wayne Robertson, who was also working, he does a number of superintendent searches around the state and helped hire Dr. McSheehy here in Vashon. And it's a 2-year cohort program that includes 6 courses in addition to an ongoing guided internship. And doing an internship in 2020 and 21 certainly is not without its opportunities for observing leadership and trying out new leadership things. It's certainly a dynamic time. So I do appreciate that opportunity. And incidentally, the course that I've just started this term is Public Policy Formation and Practice. So it's a timely opportunity to lead to facilitate the board meeting, indeed. So thank you all, and I appreciate your support. And it's been a powerful learning experience for me and helped me in my current practice, and then also looking at education from a different lens. So thanks so much.
Great. Just a reminder of the upcoming events. On February 11th, we'll have a board meeting at 7 o'clock, and this will be in person. I know John is busy working away for the technology aspects of it. We will stream it. And then I know we'll work with Sarah Day and kind of all the protocols around what that might look like for attestations, et cetera. And then we'll have our midwinter break. I am planning on taking some time away, just to let the board know that my family and I will be doing a little trip during that time. Nothing in large groups, just us. And I'm trying to convince them to go backpacking, but I'm not getting too many takers for a mid-February backpacking trip. But we do have some other plans. And then February 23rd, we'll begin communicating more broadly with the board, but we have some plans set for 5:30 to 8 p.m. working with Mary Furtakis, who is a consultant with WASDA. And then we'll give you provide the public more of an update at our February 11th meeting what that workshop will entail. And then we have 2 board meetings in March 11th and 25th at the regular time, 7 to 9 p.m. But that kind of concludes the upcoming events. And I just want to say my appreciation to Greg. I was just thinking about this. I've been at every, I've been present at every board meeting. And now and there's always been, we always have great capable folks in order to be able to stand in, but there's now we're going to have one more in the case if I'm not able to be at a board meeting that can work with our board chair and our vice chair to ensure the continuity of governance, in our district. And that's always, that's a real bonus. So thanks, Greg, for extending your learning. I won't press you on whether you're going to enroll in the doctorate program or not, but you probably know how I feel about that. And then I'll just turn this back over to Zabet.
Okay, so board member remarks. Spring, are you able to hear and speak?
Yes,
good.
I can.
Spring has had technical issues. That's why I'm asking.
Can you-
for.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry about those technical issues. They were disruptive. This is one of the meetings where I really wish that we were all together in person, but I'm looking forward to that opportunity coming up soon, because I want to really extend a very warm welcome to Comunidad and the members that are here with us tonight. I'm really so glad that you could be with us, and we're all looking forward to being able to listen with open hearts and minds to what you're going to share with us tonight, and opportunities for our collaboration and partnership with you to uplift all of our Latinx students and families. And I'm really very excited about being able to present the Black Lives Matter resolution. So yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff tonight on the agenda that I'm just feeling really energized about it.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Bob?
I have nothing to say.
I can't really believe that, but okay.
Don't be so excited, Slade.
Are you sure? Okay. Reagan?
I don't have anything in particular. I just want to echo Spring that I'm excited about the Black Lives Matter resolution, and that Comunidad is able to join us tonight. And to just again thank our staff, students, and families for continuing to work the situation with us as things evolve going through this remarkable year.
Great, thank you. And Toby?
All right, good evening. Glad to be here tonight. Welcome, Greg. Thanks for guiding us today. I wanted to express our appreciation to the Sultan School District for taking their time and energy to work with us. I think that we're one of at least 8 districts that they're supporting. And to me, it just demonstrates the collaboration between school districts in support of public education, which is very exciting. Y bienvenidos a nuestros amigos de Comunidad Latina Vashon. Gracias de estar aquí esta noche con nosotros. Bienvenidos.
Okay. I just want to reiterate actually what all of you said. This is a great meeting. We have great people in attendance. I'm really excited about what we're going to be talking about. As I said, I'm so happy that Greg is leading this meeting. He and I are leading this meeting. But I really want to also just take a second to just appreciate the public's patience and the staff's as we go through this maze of what is going to happen. And we just don't know. And I feel like the motto of 2021 now, 2020 and 2020 has been like, we're building it as we're flying it. So we'll just, I think that the thing that's helping us the most is people being understanding and patient, and just sitting in their patience and in their and just being gracious about that. And I think everyone really is. So big thanks to everybody about that. Okay. Ella and Mead, you guys are up. Do you guys, you guys can figure out, did I miss something? Or are you Slade, are you telling me something that I?
I'm celebrating Ella and Mead.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like, no, wait.
No. This
Okay,
is
so you guys.
Spirit fingers. Yeah.
Okay.
right.
Okay, Ella, Mead, whichever one wants to go first, off you go.
Okay, so we had a student advisory board meeting just this last Tuesday. And one of the things that we talked about was how students' mental health is doing during online learning. And I think a lot of people felt that their mental health was definitely struggling just due to handling all the social isolation and academic stress other than any other factors that might come into play. But students feel that teachers have actually responded well with offering extensions and help and other resources to ease the academic stress, but it's still there. I think keeping grades up is always something that students worry about. And then there was also some talk that people feel that the schools could do a little more to reach out consistently, like beyond just the occasional email, but just create more of a sense of community and support, even when it's so hard to do so. And then a lighter topic we talked about was some campus beautification projects that Dr. McSheehy brought up, because he wants the campus to be beautiful and something that students can take pride in. And so he wants to get a group together involving students to work on like landscaping and possibly getting a reader board like out in front of the high school by 204th. And, you know, just like projects like that, I think could even help with mental health. I think that's it for me. Mead, do you want to take over?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of going off what Ella was talking about with mental health. I think a lot of kids' mental health would greatly increase knowing that eventually this school year they would have the opportunity to go back to school like in person. And as predicted, students feel that safely going back to school really at any point this school year would just be like a great choice, even if it surpasses the target return date, which is April 16th right now. And for students, going back to in-person learning would be less about improving the academic environment, but a lot more for just like building that sense of community and having a larger presence of like student unification. And like Ella was talking about, students' mental health is really not ideal right now. So just finishing the year, even if it ends up being just the last week of school, even students would just greatly improve. It would greatly improve their morale, and it would just end the year on a much higher note, I think. So any strides to make sure that something in the terms of in-person learning happens by the end of the school year, I speak for most students when I say that it would be greatly appreciated. Then on another note, ASB has been pushing for, hold on one second. Oh yeah, ASB has been pushing for a Black Lives Matter Awareness Week, which is right now scheduled to be February 22nd through the 26th. And I think more details for that will come as the weeks go by. But I think that's something that students can take an active part in as well. And that's all I have.
Yeah, this would be just a great time for anybody to ask some questions for Ella and Mead. And once again, you guys are rock stars. I love my meetings with the students on Tuesdays. I've already shared like probably more than 10 times the joy I get with meeting from y'all and the commitment that you've taken, because it feels to me like it's at the end of the day, you guys are done with your classes. I mean, it's, you know, it's an add-on. And so I just want to say thank you for both of you, you know, really pulling through and being rock star board members. But other board members, yes, ask them some questions while you have them, because you're lucky to have them.
Anything, anybody?
I'd just like to maybe expand a little bit on the student mental health issue. I think that's certainly one of the driving concerns for wanting to return to school as soon as it's safely possible to do so. So, but I'm wondering from the student perspective, for the students that there are students that are having a successful time in the remote situation as well. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility for peer-to-peer discussions about supporting struggling students or more students who are feeling isolated by other students who are perhaps having a more successful time, or just generating maybe a buddy system, or would there be any kind of appetite for that? And do you think that would be helpful for the students? It was a student-led initiative.
I mean, just on a personal note, like I don't really know what the broad consensus would be, but I actually feel like that would be a really good idea. And just like, I feel like connections with other people are kind of what's missing right now for people. So just fostering places where you can have like actual conversations, even if it's online, and just like one-on-one relationships, I think could be very valuable.
Then Ella, when you were talking about more outreach, I'm just looking down at my notes, the more outreach that you think the school should do or could do, what does that look like? Did you guys talk about what more emails or what? I mean, I think people are sort of always very careful about inundating people's inboxes with emails, but at the same time, if it's going to be helpful, did either of you have an idea of what the group thought that would look like?
We didn't really get into that as much. I mean, for me, it's like different programs. I think like even the canned food drive and just like encouraging people to participate in that, just like things you can participate in that like just sense it fosters like a little bit more of a sense of community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily coming from the school, from the administration, but maybe coming from the ASB or coming from various organizations. Okay.
I just, great question, Reagan. And I would, if you guys, I think I can speak for the board, that we were all very sympathetic. And I know high schoolers have their own, needs for social interaction. So maybe we can task you with generating some ideas with your peers. And I know I personally, speak for myself only, would love to hear them. And I suspect we would all love to hear them. So you got a job to do now. So sorry you showed up.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you both so much. I reiterate what Slade is saying. We're really lucky to have you guys on the board. It's really helpful to have student voices on this board, because otherwise we don't know. I mean, we think we know. Okay. Comunidad. We are so psyched. This has been long in the making.
Yes, it has. Alrighty, so we can go ahead and start. Are we just gonna leave it like that? Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Cynthia Ramos. I'm lead community organizer of Comunidad Latina de Vashon, and we'll start off with just with some history. So CLV was founded over many years, many meetings and gatherings, but it was in 2009 when families realized they had so much in common and had a hunger to make things better for our community and for the entire island. So families began to make a plan to do so. It was in 2009 when it was first dream of having a center where youth could flourish and families could gather in celebration of their culture and themselves. And it was in 2009 the family decided to proclaim with their signs at the Strawberry Festival that we are here and we are your neighbors. Of paramount importance, our community has been the well-being of the entire island. As a matter of fact, I will say that every time our community gathers, they express concern for the island as a whole and how they can improve the island. As an example of this, when Trump was first elected and our community experienced a sudden rise of overt racism, we gathered to create a legal clinic to address our concerns. And yet over 60 leaders present that day also wanted to talk about how a part of Vashon Highway was littered. Amidst huge personal concerns, they wanted to make a plan with others to clean it up. When the school was seeing teacher cuts, we gathered to create a delicious kermes, a Latino buffet of amazing food to raise money for the school's foundation. We also supported volunteering hundreds of hours to the school by creating events like Dia de los Niños, Dia de los Muertos, so that all our island kids could be enriched by learning about other cultures. While youth were involved in all these events, it wasn't until 2017 that we really had a refunding of sorts as an organization. It was then that the Latino youth became a central driving force of our organization. They infused our group with another level of energy, impact, talent, and fun. It was shortly thereafter that we created our center, a center where you will regularly see youth gathering to laugh, to have fun, create rights-based campaigns, and plan for creating a better island and a better world. Our adult leaders have been creative about gathering to discuss and plan our concerns long before we even had a center. Many of the issues we take on are also of interest of other islanders, like when parents partner with the teachers union to rally to keep the full bilingual preschool open. Regularly, our leaders have ideas that benefit the entire island. And recently, our Latina mamas had the idea to make the school communication more clear and more concise. And after discussion with other working moms, we realized that this was a need for them as well. So it is our youth leaders that regularly remind us that we're about celebration and that there is a great joy in building stronger community. Together with our adult leaders, we create an important force for common good of our island. We can go to the next slide, please. All right, so Comunidad Latina was created to develop adult youth leaders and to create equitable systemic change. We were founded to develop adult leaders, youth leaders to create equitable systemic change. We decided that we are more than the sum of our needs and the barriers, but that we have talent and ideas to invest for the betterment of our community and for the entire island. While we offer some services, our services are created in interest of changing the systems that create the need for that service in the first place. We are, for example, interested in long-term economic development rather than long-term charity-based economic support. Our model for systemic change is comprised of looking at the system that impacts us and asking our community what ideas they have to resolve the issues. Then we work together to create a plan or a campaign to address the concern. We do this leaning on the strength of our ideas and experiences. This can be difficult because many times institutions look at us as a problem to solve rather than a partner to solve problems with together. Latinos do not just need services. They are not clients. They are community leaders who are responsible for their thriving and surviving amidst of the chronic subtle blows of systemic oppression and racism. We're about accompanying and encouraging the inherent leadership and power our people have to ignite and reclaim the strength they have to change the very strengths causing trauma in the first place. We are about leadership development, action for social change, unlearning internalized oppression to heal our wounds and unleash our capability. Some well-meaning teachers and administration come to us with thinking about equity and creative piecemeal approach based on their interest in our community. We appreciate that the disparate outreach, but we're not concerned about the well-meaning people because it's not enough. And that there is a dire need to create an effective system-wide approach for equity. Many times schools have had meetings and asked youth that what they need and there is no follow-up to those concerns. We follow up to those concerns. That is what we do. We not only follow up, but we co-create an action and programs to ensure their ideas and talent is honored and catalyzed. We are concerned that equity systems are done in a performative way. When the school district first began to think about equity, we informed them that having 2-hour meetings in English in the middle of the day was not a good way to ensure that our stories were central to an equity plan. A plan that would mostly impact the largest group of people of color on the island, our Latino community. Our ultimate goal is to have not only equity for the Latino community, but understanding the systems which better harness the ideas, talents, power of all the island community. especially other ignored and undervalued groups like low-income Vashon community members. Honoring our story is the first step toward working with us. If we cannot collectively understand and acknowledge the truth of our history, we risk the misrepresentation and the erasure of community and their brilliance, and that's not a price that we're willing to pay. We don't speak for the community, so we will not be taking questions. This message was approved by the community, and we need to approve any other responses to your questions to make sure they are commonly held views of our leaders. Next slide, please, and Nicole will be presenting.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm the mental health director at Puentes. Well, Puentes is its own organization working for mental health and immigration justice for the Latino and immigrant communities beyond. We've been in partnership with Comunidad for years. Our values and just the way we work in partnership is so closely aligned. We resonate as una familia, moving in step together to see the Latino and immigrant communities thrive. So I'm speaking tonight as a part of the Comunidad team. In terms of who Comunidad serves, who we work with, who we come alongside as co-leaders, it's led by Latinos for Latinos. We don't make decisions without a process of community input. We find this process deepens our well of ideas and caters solutions to the changing daily reality of those most impacted by the systems we're wanting to shift. Comunidad is intentional in getting to know new and unreached Latino families, their stories, their desires, especially those that are least often included. We understand that it's a privilege to participate in mainstream ways, to be able to attend meetings during the middle of the day, on a weekend. A virtual call is a luxury. We purposefully search for those who've not been involved to address together whatever barriers they have to sharing their needs and sharing their ideas with our collective systems change efforts. To reach and include as many families as possible, our programs function at the community center, in homes, in the community, and through many, many, many phone calls. We don't contact every family every time, but we give a hell of an effort. As we do include and center the community, we recognize that the ability to consistently engage may actually be a reflection of privilege rather than a desire to take a role as a community leader. Comunidad may be Latino, but our staff can't represent our entire community's experiences in any given moment or any given meeting. We always return to and are perpetually engaged in conversations and relationships with the community, seeing them as mutual leaders, getting in touch with them before speaking for the whole. This is why we host events and outreach to meet them and hear as many voices and ideas in our community as possible in the times and places that work for them. I want to touch on an idea of something called the danger of a single story. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is a Nigerian author. She shares about a time when her college roommate, largely due to American media of starving African children, assumed that she didn't know how to use a stove, treated her with a patronizing, well-meaning pity because she had a single story of catastrophe for Africans. There was no possibility of connection as humans because it was just pity. Adichie relays her experience of both accomplishments and poverty, family unity and political strife, saying all of these stories make me who I am. To insist on only one of them is to flatten my experience. Single stories can create stereotypes. They make one story become the only story. Adichie talks about how stories are defined and integrated with the principle of power, how they're told, who tells them, how many are told. She says, if you want to dispossess a people, start the story with indigenous arrows instead of European cannons. Start the story of Africans at war with another instead of colonization. She says stories have been used to dispossess and malign, but they've also been used to empower and humanize. Stories can break the dignity of a people, but they can also repair the dignity of a people. I say this because Latinos on Vashon don't have a single story. There are layers of privilege within the community. And while CLV is intentional to include the voices and experiences of those who've been most excluded by traditional systems, We will not allow a single story of pity to circulate. Often the parameters for meetings or programs or initiatives are set by those in positions of power and privilege. When those parameters and those times and those places don't work for our community, the community's been blamed. This is a story told from people in power, in positions of power, but it's not one with which we resonate. We see the problem as systemic. The efforts that have been made toward equity thus far, part-time advocates, token representation, monthly equity meetings, they're not enough. They were not co-created. We do understand you have a lot going on, and you're not able to do everything you'd like to do, least of which the return to in-person schooling with COVID. We also understand that, or hope that you understand, that we too have many projects and initiatives in addition to trying to advocate at the school. We have valuable information from our families that would be helpful for transforming the school system, the way your resolutions and intentions proclaim that you're dedicated to. But we need to be able to trust that you're going to follow through when this in-depth, trusted input is given to you for free. You hired an external equity consultant when you've been getting an equity from your own community for years. We're asking you to center impact, not intention. Our time isn't limitless. Our energy is spent in so many realms: health, housing, mental health, policy, advocating for better life for Latinos. And we center our efforts where we can joyfully build the most leaders and change the most systems. Nothing's more important to our families than their kids. And we do hope we can co-create thoughtful educational programs that honor this exemplary devotion as we see in our parents. When it comes to mental health, I've been witness to students navigating daily environments dominated by this single story of Latinos. I hear countless times that they feel other, stupid, less than, not strong. From a clinical perspective, 75% of the diagnoses for the kids I see are adjustment order, meaning that they're adjusting to something traumatic. In this case, the trauma they're adjusting to is systemic racism. This doesn't mean that there's a mental health crisis in the Latino community. It means that there's a systemic crisis of racial inequity. These kids don't see themselves or their people represented in history books or the faces of people in power in positions higher up at the school district. Much of the support given to Latino kids in ELL groups may be helpful for learning English, but they're done in a way that feeds the narrative that they are, quote unquote, immigrants in need. If they learn English but don't learn how strong and capable they are, we've failed. It's critical to foster spaces where there's more than a single story, where they can be strong, proud, and have tough days, where they can be a successful small business owner and need translation support at school, where they can call out the flaws of the school system and not get perceived as troublemakers or victims. These systems need changing, and this community is strong. We see your intentions, and there's been an impact. We're asking you to see it.
Now, Brandon is up next for the next slide, please.
Okay, hey, how's it going? So I'm Brandon Guerrero, a current student at VHS, and what I was hoping to share with you is the achievements that our community has done without and with COVID. To be fair, this was not easy because we have done a lot for the community and with the community that we actually had to narrow it down from 5 pages of accomplishments. That wouldn't have been possible without, the mamas and young leaders. Let's start off with our Get Out the Vote movement. We are starting with this because it's important to know where all the confidence came from and how we are able to change the day-to-day with our strong and loud voices and wills. We organized canvassing days, phone banks, and other events just to show how important it is to vote and also be engaged in the community that we are trying so hard to build. Sorry, I stutter a lot. It was actually really fun. There was tamales and cokes, which just made everything better. And to top it off, we alone reached out to 1,700 people while also being part of the record-setting Latino voter outreach in our state. It connected us with Latinos throughout our region and helped us understand how fun and compelling it was to build our power as a community. That 2018 campaign was the foundation of our Latino leadership for us youth. Also in 2019, the Vashon Latino youth held the one-day voter registration statewide record for statewide youth. And we were able to pre-register 85 students in one day. We also met up with legislators just so they could learn about us and from us. They found us so interesting that they want to come back and listen for more. We had so many things planned before COVID hit. We would plan to meet at Thriftway, IGA, and Granny's and other locations just to engage with families. And we also planned a listening campaign to hear what they wanted and look forward to in the future. 12 of us youth leaders learned to make and maintain a relational meeting with the community. Relational meetings help us learn from each other and the struggles and barriers we have faced and or are facing. We look for a perspective from our economically and culturally diverse community. These helped us come up with the pop-up mercado, pop-up market. CLV created a program for economic development. Both youth and adults led the development of a business program that was tailored to their access and resources. This was of great interest to the community because although we had great ideas, we had no resources and limited information in Spanish. But with research, we learned about the pop-up market in Burien and mirrored what they did, but with our own ideas. It was very successful. We had more than 400 people attend our first 2019 pop-up mercado. Our youth learned about tech skills such as making Facebook events, using Venmo and PayPal, and Canva to make flyers, business cards, etc. 43 leaders made this dream into a possibility, from abuelitas cooking to preschoolers handing out tickets. And our COVID response. When COVID hit, it was new to us and the families. We adapted to what was thrown at us and kept in touch with all families. Many families were affected by COVID in major ways and eventually got fired and or their hours cut tremendously. Landscapers, construction workers, house cleaners, and restaurant workers were all affected by this. On top of that, I was forced to learn along with my friends and fellow leaders online. Most of us didn't have laptops and Wi-Fi to do this. But this was time for leadership. Our parents and youth both advocated and stood together to make the situation the best possible by helping each other. COVID has highlighted many of the injustice and discrepancies given the difficulties of rent, payments, food, and other basic needs during COVID. We called each and every family many times to troubleshoot their unique needs and to catalyze their original ideas. Our community members and leaders asked us to create a solidarity fund to help families during this unforeseen time, and we did. We continue to help with food access, applications, sharing important information, advocating for their needs of our community, and more. Our elder youth organized themselves to help younger people, some even attending online classes with them. Within weeks of COVID hitting, our community had created organic programs for and by the community. And then action and celebration. We're about helping our community, about getting our rights, about fun. Early in 2020, during our Dia de los Reyes celebration, we had over 100 community attendees. Community leaders chose to focus economic opportunities, health, and civic engagement and leadership development. This is an ongoing and repeating process, as all of our work is based on seeking, sharing, and actualizing the stories of our community into systemic change action. CLV was in the process of a listening campaign, as mentioned above, with very intention of bringing in new community members to participate in our community learnings and the development of action plans in order to truly get the heart of the community identified inequities. Our community does everything possible to support the future of their families and their kids. We have a lot of diversity of thought, but shared a strong work ethic and a culture to celebrate. that's it.
All right, next slide. All right, so about our partnerships and what that looks like. In our engagement with the wider community, we are necessarily discerning and identifying allies who are willing to listen and collaborate with us in our community-led initiatives. We believe these are the type of relationships needed in order to have a successful community outreach program and allow the leaders from our community to address systemic barriers and policy change in a way that is honoring of our community brilliance and circumstantial limitations. This requires time. It requires to consider how cultural systems and immigrant experiences affect our day-to-day lives. In the part, we have attempted to advise white-led groups how to engage directly with the Latino community and ask them not to assume or create initiatives without the Latino community's input. But our request is that, and it's not often needed, it takes a lot of time to create trustworthy relationships and provide a space where Latinos feel comfortable to be themselves and share their voices. Sylvie was started for that very reason, to create community-led systemic change in the places that impact their daily lives. It's fun to work with us when we build trust and truly create, but it takes humility. As an organization that is powered by community and dependent on relationships, collaboration is in our veins. Lack of participation in partnership has more to do with the discernment about when a project or perspective does not hold our values and not wanting to subject our community to these environments. We do not want to encourage spaces that do not share power. We do not want to ask community to participate in spaces where their voices are tokenized and not actually heeded. We do not think our time, energy, and resources are best spent on projects or relationships that are not founded on, convinced of, or promoting the power, talents, and the brilliance, again, of Latinos. We hope to transform the spaces that have a single story of a community as immigrants in need, and we don't ask for a community to occupy spaces when they are getting a patronizing, well-meaning pity. We want to recognize one of our very, very loved partners, Sally Adam, as she has been a very trusted ally in our community for over a decade. Her constant relationship building with parents, bridging the communication gaps between teachers and families, and prioritizing of what is important to Latino families, and an authentic belief in their strengths has given our families a reliable, trusted person to support them in navigating the school systems. She went above and beyond during COVID to make sure families had what they needed to succeed. She is constantly thinking about how to support families facing an issue while simultaneously co-creating, gathering the ideas to eliminate the issue altogether for future families. This is the kind of partner we look for. Many youth have also mentioned specific teachers they have had who see them, support them, and believe in them. We are grateful for these allies. And final slide, please, or is that it? Oh, sorry. So we believe the key to better partnership is better relationships so that we can increase the understanding of our collective strengths and how we co-create better solutions. As we mentioned, we are not authorized to speak for the entire community, so cannot take questions in this forum, but there are groups of leaders and organizers ready to have individual meetings with each board member to begin with this relationship building process that we hope will lead to a more productive and joyful school Latino community experience. We will not ask you each individually if you are willing to have a one-on-one meeting with us. These meetings will take place on a Zoom on a Saturday afternoon when most of our families are typically not working. A reminder that this is a simple yes or no question. We are not interested to hear at this time a celebration of all you believe you have already done for the Latino community. We are asking you to center the impact we have described, not your intentions, so that we can see true sustainable change and have the possibility of working together towards racial equity. So Bob Hennessy, will you meet with leaders and organizers of Comunidad Latina to build our relationships so that we may in the future co-create solutions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Toby Holmes, will you meet with leaders and organizers of Comunidad Latina de Vashon to build a relationship so that we may in the future co-create solutions?
I look forward to the opportunity. It'd be great.
Thanks. Spring Heck, will you meet with leaders and organizers of Comunidad Latina de Vashon to build a relationship so that we may in the future co-create solutions?
I would love nothing more. Thank you.
Beth McComber, will you meet with leaders and organizers of Comunidad Latina de Vashon to build our relationship so that we may in the future co-create solutions?
Yes, and I'm free Saturday. This Saturday. I'm ready.
Reagan Sparks, will you meet with leaders and organizers of Comunidad Latina de Vashon to build our relationship so that we may in the future co-create solutions?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it?
And that is it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And I understand that you're not taking questions. Does anybody want to comment on the board about anything that we just heard?
I have a, how to frame this not as a question. How about a request? We're about, well, in a while about to undertake our budget planning process for the next year. And I would encourage CLVE to be thinking about how, as you know, this is, you fund what you prioritize. And so I'm hoping to engage, that you will find a way to engage in our budget process so that it serves the students you represent.
Can I
Spring.
just
Yeah, jump in.
quick comment, not a question, but I'm wanting to really, all of us just to keep feeling that those powerful words. I don't want to talk a lot, just to say that I feel like very deep gratitude for them, for Comunidad, for all three of you coming tonight, and special thank you to the student who came to speak tonight. Nothing gives me more hope, I think, than youth leadership. And I don't feel anything close to pity when I think about our Latino families and students. And when I think of Comunidad, and I think especially even more so after tonight, I only think of like a beautiful force. And I appreciate their patience with us, I think. And I'm appreciating that. I think we're all really hearing in a very sincere way about the humility and everything. I was really trying to soak it all in. So I'm babbling, so I'll stop. But I'm just so grateful. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Anybody else want to not ask a question, comment on that? Okay. Thank you, all three of you, and all who spoke, and everybody else who came. We've been really looking forward to this presentation, and I think it was everything we hoped it would be, and probably more. I'm really looking forward to our individual conversations with you. I think that will be also really productive. And I agree, a big shout out to Sally Adam, who has been so great for so long with our two communities. Okay. All right.
I give a shout out to Brandon. You did a great job. Thanks for sharing. It's great to see the leader you're becoming. So nice job.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I feel like, I don't know, it feels sort of anticlimactic to move on to the next thing. Sorry, Matt. But and then as Slade says, if you want to stay, please stay. Don't feel obliged that you have to stay. We always love people staying because we think everything we talk about is so fascinating. So we'd love you to stay, but understand if you have to move on. Okay, Matt.
Thanks, Sabette. Provided to you is our regular monthly financials, specifically financials through the end of December, and then enrollment through the beginning or start of January. I'll touch upon the dashboard first, Jody, if you can pull that up. There it is. So like I said, financials through December, or 33% of our fiscal year. As we've noted throughout this entire year, thanks to the pandemic, or no thanks to the pandemic, we're seeing expenditures less than what was budgeted. The revenues are coming in steady as projected. Specifically, we see expenditures at 29.3% of a 33% of the year, with our revenues about 30.8, almost 31% of the year. If we look at the expenditures in the 5 and 10 year, we consistently over the first 4 months see a slight drop off on expenditures, as we knew there would be. And then revenues are trailing right about where they should be. So as a whole, a good year financially, and the budget is quite stable. Any questions on that? Anticlimactic document. On to enrollment, and good news on the enrollment front. For the first time in this year, we actually gained FTE, which is a good thing. Overall, from the month of December to January, we saw a 0.3 gain in FTE, which is a good thing. So we're stabilizing out with enrollment. Specifically, if you look at the middle tables, when I like to always point out, from December to January for Chautauqua, they saw a gain of a little over 1 FTE, and that is a brand new student coming in from outside the district. McMurray is stable, right where it was from December to January. And then the high school lost a slight FTE, with Link staying about the same. And like I said, overall was a gain from December to January. So we hope to see that trend moving forward with either gain or staying stable, with our average dropping to 26.99 students off of budget. So overall, like I said, a good enrollment month, and we hope that continues. Any questions?
What's happening with the running start? Why are they?
Oh, we typically don't get those numbers till later in the month. That's why.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, those come in from the community colleges, about mid-month to end of the month.
Okay. Great. Is that it? I don't have that. Thanks, Jody.
You call that a report?
Okay. Reagan and I went to the high school, which is an experience, as we all know now, in Zoom, when you sort of suddenly appear in a meeting. And we got to be there for the very first day of the third quarter, first day of the second semester. So Reagan, you want to go talk about it?
Sure. I guess the takeaway for me is that our staff and our students have become much more adept at the technology, and I was impressed in every class we were in how many were on camera, that the class sounded like a cohesive class, and that our staff wasn't no longer struggling with the technology itself, and things were really fluid that way. So that was encouraging. I was also struck just in the range of the student responses. I mean, we were only in each class for a few minutes at a time, but even so, you could hear there's a lot of interactive things going on between the students and the teachers as they got to know each other on the first day of the term. And you could just hear in their voices which students were doing fine with the situation and which students maybe felt more strained or confused or tired of what was happening. So I think the takeaway for me was just to honor many perspectives on what's happening now and then the prospect of returning to school eventually, that everyone is in a different place, and we need to be mindful and honor and be, validate validate where everyone is at and recognize that there's many different points of view going forward. But you know, the high school is, we also heard about eventual reopening plans for the high school, assuming the virus permits us to do that and the situation doesn't regress again. And there's a lot of exciting things happening with looking at what Chautauqua is going through right now with their process and learning and building off of that process and consulting with other districts. There are other secondary schools in the state that are currently open for in-person learning, public schools, not just private schools. So there's a base of support and information out there to draw on, and I found that was very encouraging, talking to Danny and Gus about their process and looking ahead to doing that, and just how much planning is involved in that process, and all the details. And you know, we can't even really imagine all the detail that goes into that, and how much labor and effort goes into trying to move back into the in-person. It seems like it would be more simple to just come back in person, but especially under the COVID environment, obviously it's not. It's quite a bit more involved to keep everyone safe. So, but I felt very reassured by how much thought and details going into that. And we'll see in April if we look like the virus is going to let us get there. But overall, I think my sense was that we have a very hardworking staff and administration. We have very hardworking students, and everyone is tired of this current situation and hoping to move on to the next step, whether that's totally getting back to normal and being in person post-COVID, or at least having some more community building opportunities while we're within COVID. So yeah, I think I guess that's the gist of my overall takeaway from what we discussed and heard from the visit.
Yeah, I would reiterate that. I was impressed with, and just people, I mean, just like we are here. I mean, we just sort of gotten used to this little boxes, and I don't think anybody wants to be in the box anymore, but they're doing it. I also, what Gus was talking about, the several teachers who have in-person students, Kate Dunnigan and Eric Mortensen and Kathleen, I want to say Reykjavik. It's not Reykjavik, is it? Slade? He's not listening. And how creative they've been. That two of them are, you know, there's a woodworking teacher and jewelry teacher, and then the AP's chemistry teacher, and just how creative they're being getting kids in, because it's just woodworking and it's jewelry, and you can't really do that online, and it's AP chemistry. And so they've been super creative. I mean, and I just, yeah, my hat is off to all teachers in the district, really, about how creative they've been about making these classes work as much as
and how much that's meant to the students.
Yeah.
To be able to have that contact and to be able to do it safely. So, you know, again, that's another reinforcing sign that we have had probably more students and staff coming and going at the high school throughout this period, and we've still been able to keep it a safe environment for everyone there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's encouraging.
Yeah. So Bob and Toby and Spring, it was as good as those visits always are. That's like the highlight. It is a little weird though to like pop in and be like, huh, especially when you pop into your son's Spanish class and he goes.
Yeah, I'm always relieved when I just manage to not screw up the in and out myself and get lost somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Pop into someone else's class. Do any of you guys have questions for us? Because we have such a thorough report there that I can't imagine you have questions for us. Anybody? Bob? Nothing? Okay. Oh, Slade, I'm sorry. Do you have a question for us?
I don't have a question. I just think it's important to go ahead and recognize the teachers that we visited. So that's Kara Weber, Warren Meyerhofer, Stephen Floyd, Andy James, and Lou Mangio. So
yes, I would, thank you. Yeah.
thank you, those
a lot
teachers.
of classrooms.
Yeah, we went to
Yeah,
5.
absolutely. We were cruising. And
yeah, it was good.
right, beginning of quarter 3, congratulations to everybody on finishing the first 2.
Yeah.
Away we go on the second half of the year.
And Andy James killing it as the substitute English teacher.
Yep.
So it was good. It was
Good
great. Okay, yeah, and of course, thanks to Danny and Gus for taking time out of their schedule to.
Sure, we can throw them in there.
Okay, so on to discussions. We have 2 items up, and the first, I don't want to say one is more exciting than the other, but one is pretty much more exciting than the other. Toby and Spring, you guys are up.
All right, thank you. I'll just kind of introduce what we're talking about for this discussion related to the Black Lives Matter in Schools resolution, and then Spring will take it from there. Really, we have so much to learn and we have so much action to take, and our goal is to make a true impact. And this is one of those exercises as we went through, we're kind of hitting ourselves on the forehead thinking we needed to do this before, and so very happy that we're talking about this tonight and intending to move forward with it. We worked as a team to produce and edit the resolution to declare support for the National Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action. And that was actually a fabulous conversation. Spring, Slade, Stephanie, and I really got into the weeds, and was excited to have an engaging conversation and actively work through that process, because racial equity remains a critical pillar and a clear priority for the board and the district, and is going to be centering a lot of the work that we do moving forward as we contemplate reviewing our strategy, dusting that off. For me, one of the most exciting things about this process and the work was how centering the Black Lives Matter 13 guiding principles are, and how they relate to our values as a district and the priorities that we have. And it really, for me, it felt like it just ties this action all together. Please, if you didn't before the board meeting, go back and read through the principles and the description, and they're very centering in this work. And they range, you'll see from loving engagement, diversity, empathy, also principles addressing gender and privilege and misogyny. And these tie into even our current school values and our mission. So for me, this is really an important piece, an important resolution that has a foundation that goes well beyond just the Black Lives Matter Week of Engagement in school, and is supported by these important foundational principles. And so I anticipate it's going to have an impact on and help us guide our decisions going forward, and supporting the work that is being done in the buildings. So very excited to be here with Spring to present this resolution. Spring, I'll hand the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and do our first reading of the resolution. Just a couple of pages. Feel free again to reference it in the board packet on page 25. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Vashon Island School District number 402, King County, Vashon, Washington, to declare support for the National Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action. Whereas schools should be engaged in creating pathways to freedom and justice for all Black, Indigenous, people of color. And whereas our understanding of history and events is shaped by the stories we learn and the voice tell them. And whereas school systems have a responsibility to their students and the communities they serve to nurture young people who have the courage and skills to confront personal, systemic, and societal racism and recognize the many types of privilege that exist in our society. And whereas the intersectionality of oppression and privilege is unique to each of our school buildings and neighborhoods. And whereas individual educators, students, and families of the Vashon Island School District have long engaged in action to bring awareness to issues of racial and social justice, including creating teacher-led and student-led racial equity teams, advocating for participating in comprehensive professional learning on culturally responsive and trauma-informed instruction, the hosting of school-wide celebrations of inclusion and diversity, teaching about Black excellence, Black achievements and contributions, and working to decolonize our libraries and school reading lists. And whereas the Black Lives Matter movement has raised awareness that injustices that exist at the intersections of race, class, and gender, including mass incarceration, police brutality, poverty, unaffordable housing, income disparity, transphobia, homophobia, unjust immigration policies, gender inequality, and poor access to healthcare. And whereas teachers, parents, scholars, and administrators across the country have come together to proclaim a week of action, affirmation, and solidarity to be called Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action. And whereas the purpose of the Week of Action is to spark an ongoing movement of reflection and honest conversations in school communities for people of all ages to engage with issues of social justice, equity, the intersectionality of oppression, and the legacy of institutionalized racism and oppression that has plagued the United States since its founding. And whereas the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action is endorsed by the National Education Association and was first conceived by teachers in Seattle in 2016. And whereas the national demands of the 2019 Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action align with the Vashon Island School District's stated desire and continued efforts to practice restorative justice to combat disproportionate discipline for students of color and marginalized populations in our schools, diversify the educator workforce, incorporate more culturally relevant curriculum and culturally sustaining pedagogy into our schools, and increase staffing for counseling and student support services. And whereas the work of dismantling systems of oppression and moving towards becoming an anti-racist organization requires an open and continuous dialogue between all members of our community. And whereas this continued dialogue belongs in our classrooms, at our kitchen tables, and everywhere in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Vashon Island School District 402, King County, Vashon, Washington, endorses and encourages our community to participate in the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action to be held yearly during the month of February. Be it further resolved that the board urges educators, students, and families to incorporate the 13 guiding principles of the Black Lives Matter movement into their discussions about race and privilege all year long by teaching a Black Lives Matter at School lesson, showing solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement in our attire, attending an anti-racist event in support of racial equity, singing songs that acknowledge our history of oppression and the struggle for justice, reading a book that challenges our worldview, making art that celebrates the diversity of our community, listening to the experiences of people who are different from us, and talking with our children about how each of us can work to build a more just and equitable society. It was really fun to be able to read that tonight. We didn't make this beautiful document up ourselves. These things are, the beautiful thing is that there are so many schools who are doing these resolutions, and sometimes we can think like, oh, this feels performative. Oh, what does this document really mean? And that's what one of the things I think I really recognize is, as a board, we get to formalize our commitment to dismantling racism in our educational system. And so, but a lot of the real work is going to happen because it's going to be carried out by our teachers, boots on the ground, and our staff. And so tomorrow we have a meeting, our racial equity meeting, that occurs with Parents and Friends for Racial Equity and the leadership team. And shout out to, there were a lot of the gang from Parents and Friends for Racial Equity that were watching the board meeting tonight and hooting and hollering when Comunidad was presenting. But we're all gonna, tomorrow we're gonna come together and we're gonna talk about and explore what are meaningful ways that we can apply those 13 principles. And then the staff and leadership are gonna just take that away. And it'll be really exciting. And there'll be opportunities, hopefully, for us to just continue to support and contribute, provide input about Black Lives Matter Action Week, and how we're going to make this formal document resolution be something that's more than just a piece of paper, and something that we are committed to every day of the year, not just 1 week out of the year. So I don't know if there's any staff that have questions. I know you probably all read over it, not staff, but you fellow board directors or anybody, or comments, but maybe opening it up to if just anybody wants to add or ask a question.
You know, I'll jump
Hey,
in.
Spring, I just have.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Reagan, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just have a real quick, just edit question. The third paragraph on the second page, there's a date there of 2019. Is that the correct date? Do we want to say 2021?
That's a good question. Maybe is that a typo we missed? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
we'll fix that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's all. Everything else sounds wonderful. I just want to be sure we're doing this now, right now.
Yeah, I read that out loud and I was thinking 2019. Okay, it's kind of hard to remember what year it is sometimes these days. Any other thoughts, comments?
I would say, you know, I'm thinking back when Greg, you were talking about at McMurray, what the program they're doing, they call it called The Power of Words. And this is what we are witness to right now. This is the power of words. It's just 2 pages of words. But when we sign this, it becomes more than just words, and it becomes this document that will become a sort of a guiding force, and it will really is as you said, Toby, is one of the pillars of this of where we are now in this district and where we want to be. It's not just a week of Black Lives Matter or, you know, people of color matter. It's all 52 weeks. And so this is a great jumping off point. And Spring, to your point, as that tomorrow, I mean, it's sort of the way it's all sort of lined up. Is sort of funny that, you know, the Comunidad comes today with their really powerful presentation, and then we have this, and then tomorrow we have our racial equity meeting, and then the work we're going to start doing with the strategic plan. I just feel like we're you know, as I was saying to someone this afternoon, you know, we might be late to the party, but we're at the party. We're getting there, you know, and come on aboard. It's time. It is very much time. So anybody else want to say anything, Slade?
Just a few thoughts, if you permit me. Just recognize this movement started in 2016 in Seattle, and I appreciate Spring reaching out, and it looks like we can have some partnership with some early learners in this work to probably help us, you know, kind of move this forward. The second thing I want to note is that Spring is right. We reviewed probably 5 or 6 examples, and we reviewed Seattle's, you know, amongst them. And what, you know, the example that we followed was from Olympia. And so I just want to kind of give a citation where probably the citation is warranted. This shift, we have a few weeks before our second reading on the 11th. And so I just encourage board members to, you know, consider every paragraph, every action that, and what that may lead to, because from Comunidad, Nicole, a meeting quite some time ago with them, and Nicole spoke quite passionately, who is speaking with us tonight. I don't know if she's still on. I don't think she is. Spoken about the intentions versus impacts, and it's messy work, and we don't get there tomorrow. But I just want to recognize that the impacts are when we, you know, when I don't believe this work is going to be finished when any of us, you know, when our kids are gone, and I may be not the leader of this district, but we will struggle to make sure that race is not the determining factor for how kids are successful in our district and how they feel like they belong. We heard that tonight. And so we haven't figured it out yet. We haven't figured out the relationship with Comunidad. We haven't figured out a lot of things. And so it means there's a lot of work to do. This is a great step forward. I'm very happy and proud that our staff is ready for this and eager and leaning into it. And so I'm even more grateful that we have a board that wants to move it forward, even if it's not in the most, you know, like a wonderful presented package, and it may not be. But I'm just eager to get the work done. I can't wait for tomorrow's meeting to get more feedback, and happy that the other districts, you know, in front of us, like Seattle and Olympia, have been there before us, because it just means there's resources for us to draw upon. And thanks Toby and Spring for presenting this tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both for the work you've been putting into this. Sorry, I'm just getting over to the agenda so I can actually see it, because oh, okay. So I mean, from the sublime to the ridiculous, no, from the something to protocol. This is a good one. Greg, here we go.
Yeah, this item is in response to, I think Director Hennessy came up in new business with an idea around how board members might get an agenda item on the agenda. And so Jody Slade and I did some research and kind of centered on a draft for first reading of the board operating protocol board meeting agenda. And I'll just quickly read it. The board chair and superintendent will set the agenda for each scheduled board meeting. Individual board members should work with the board chair and the superintendent to place an issue or concern on the agenda. The board chair will follow up with the board member if there are any questions, follow-up questions regarding the issue and concern. The board chair will communicate the request to the entire board. If there are 3 members who wish to place the issue or concern on the agenda, it will be placed on the agenda in a subsequent meeting.
Thanks, Craig. And wait, I just want to go back. I do not want to imply that this is ridiculous. This is not ridiculous, Bob. This is a good thing that we're clarifying this. This has been sort of like haunting.
You stated.
Yeah, I did state it. This has been haunting this board and the previous board. And so it's really nice to get it in writing. And I really appreciate you being the squeaky wheel on this. Okay, so does anybody have any comments about this? Why are you laughing? He calls himself a squeaky wheel on this.
Okay. Being a squeaky wheel is, I think that serves.
I've
really
heard pain in the
purpose.
butt more often
I was
than
just
that.
See?
I guess I just had one quick comment, which is just to clear. I appreciate this. Yeah, it's very practical, and I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know that it has been haunting us as a board. I mean, we all, you know, we're all pretty, like any of those formal policies, protocols we really follow, but this was sort of something that was like, we got to decide how we wanted to do it, right? And we just needed consensus about that, clear communication, and now we all know, right? And it was kind of happening organically, but now we have, it's really nice to formalize things, but, and to clarify, no decisions are made here other than what we're just putting on the agenda, right? That's all that all this, contacting the board chair, 3 people have to agree. It's not like the discussion about what we're, right? So we're really continuing to follow, adhere to, it's, what is it? I get OSPI mixed up with OPMI. OPMI, right? Yeah. No, whatever.
OPMA.
You know what I'm talking about. Thank you. That's it.
Right. This is just to get something onto the agenda. So if Bob wants to talk about that every day we should have spaghetti at school, he needs to convince 3 of us that it should get onto the agenda.
Bob needs to convince 2 of you about spaghetti.
Oh, well, there needs to be 3 of you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, there needs to be 3 people. This is why we have.
Well done, Bob.
It's an algebra equation.
Right, and it'll always be Bob. It'll be Bob and 2 other board members. No. So, but to the point is that like, it just is to get it onto the agenda, and then it comes up and the 5 of us discuss it, and we all realize that spaghetti every day is the best thing, and we pass it, and then it becomes spaghetti every day. Right, Bob? Bob?
Yeah, you're.
Hold on.
He's getting his props.
I was looking for my Bob is right shirt. And I actually have one.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Okay, so that's the first read. Thanks, Jody. Okay, so consent.
Well, actually, can I just ask? I don't think anybody asked if there were questions or considerations this round. I know it was explained, but.
Oh yeah, I'm right.
This is a good place for discussion because at the next one, it's traditional that there'd be a recommendation for the board to approve this and add it into the protocols. So just want to pause and just ask if there were any other questions or any comments from board members. Great. Thanks.
Okay. Consent agenda. The only thing I want to say is that we're seeing some people who are retiring in here in the Dr. Stephen Floyd retiring, and we will have a big recognition of everyone who's retiring at the end of the year. But they kind of slip in here, but so we're not ignoring you, Dr. Floyd, by not making a big thing out of you like we did last time. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Yeah, consent agenda.
Moved.
Second it.
Reagan, were you seconding or were you questioning?
I was seconding, but I got out seconded.
By Toby.
No way.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Consent agenda passes. Do we have any new business?
I just wanted to make a quick comment on consent agenda items, not to overdwell on it, but often when people retire, they submit a really meaningful letter. Sometimes there's real nuggets in there that we can learn from, think about how we can improve what we do. Other times it's just another moment of gratitude, but it's nice. I appreciate it when we hear that. And so I know we passed this and we'll be celebrating those employees who are retiring and moving elsewhere. But it's, I think, just a friendly reminder, it's good to go read these in the board packs.
Right, Toby, thank you for remembering that, because wait, don't close that, Jody, because Stephen brings up a great point about his love of the arts and the theater and student theater and how important it has been to the high school. And he hopes that it doesn't disappear after he retires. And I am just speaking for myself, but I really hope it doesn't disappear either. But, okay. So no further business, then we are adjourned. Thank you, Toby. Thank you all for a great meeting. Thank you all for your work. Greg, nice job. You can come back anytime.
Yes,
Well, thank
Greg.
you. Thanks for the backup slate. I needed all I could get.
Everything went well. Yeah, and Cynthia, I see you're still here. Thank you. If you're actually, sometimes we leave our computers, so.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
And thank you, Stacy, interpreter Stacy. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Right.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks.